Hi everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. I talk about books on this channel, mainly books about magic, and today we are going to be doing my June wrap-up, and it's a big one. Hello everyone and welcome to the June wrap-up. This is a bit extensive since the Amazing Readathon did happen in June and I usually read a lot. I didn't read quite as much as last year, but in a way I think that's a good thing. So I've ended up finishing 18 books. I have a few more things that I DNF'd to mention as well, but we're going to talk about 18 different titles today. In total, just for a few stats, I read 2,816 pages and listened to 73.77 hours of audiobook. And with reading 18 things, you would think this is a little higher, but a lot of this was graphic novels and manga that got mixed in for Face-Off weekend. So even though I read a lot, some of it was of varying lengths, and I actually didn't read anything that was super long this month. I kept most of my reads between 300 and 400 pages for my novels. I listened to 8 audiobooks, I read 7 physically, and I read 2 ebooks, so this was quite the month where I had a lot of different formats going on, but I think that's all we're going to break down for right now because I'm going to jump into the books that I read. I actually lied to you just slightly because we're going to quickly show you my self-care board that I talked about in my TBR last month, since I wanted to recap that as well, since that was my TBR, and it was a bunch of self-care prompts that my friends had given me, and I was trying to cover the whole board, but I didn't think that was going to be realistic since there were 25 spaces and only 30 days in June, and unless I did something nearly every day, I wasn't going to get everything done. So I'm really happy with what I accomplished. I actually ended up getting 3 different bingos and I covered all but 5 of the squares. So 20 out of 25 is not bad. And I have already decided that I'm going to roll some of these prompts that people gave me into regular features in my rewards as well, because these were really fun and I would like to do the ones that I didn't get to at some point. So we will get to them someday, but it just wasn't accomplished in June. So thank you once again to everyone who gave me a prompt, because this was a fantastic way to keep things balanced and it really encouraged me to take care of myself as well as participate in a really fun readathon. So we are going to now jump into the books and we are going to go in the order that I read the books. That's typically how I structure my wrap-ups. So we're going to start with Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This is the story of Dora, who a fairy stole half of her soul based on a bargain that her mother made, but he is interrupted when he's trying to steal her whole soul and he only gets half. But this leaves Dora with no sense of fear or embarrassment, which gets her into trouble in a lot of different ways. And when she is hoping to just be a unauspicious wallflower in London, she catches the notice of the High Warlock of London, and he wants to help her with her predicament. However, there is a plague happening in London where children are falling asleep and not waking up, and they suspect that the origins may be magical, and the two of them start to investigate this. This was a really fun read. It was very much a Julie book. It's set in like Regency London. It has a lot of like steampunky vibes in that there's a lot of magic mixed with the early industrial age, and it's really fun. I loved the magic in here. It's a bit of a romance of manners as well, and I liked our characters. I had a few concerns going through the book about how we were going to solve this half a soul problem and if it was going to be some kind of magical fix, but I ended up really liking how things worked out and that didn't end up being a problem for me. So I did like this book. I did have a few quibbles with it, like I said, but I will be continuing the series, and Olivia Atwater is another author that I am adding to my I need to check out more of her books list. Next up, I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is the story of Eva, who is a romance author. She has this paranormal erotica series that she has been writing for years, and she's balancing a lot of things. She is an author, she's a single mom, she's chronically ill, she just has a lot going on. And when she is on a panel for authors at an event, and someone from her past shows up. Their tempers flare and they get into sort of an argument on stage, which reconnects them but also brings some attention to them from the audience, seeing them argue like this. And they actually have a past, and Sean is someone that Eva knew back before she was writing, and there are questions there about why he's been gone from her life this long. And they start to examine this in 7 Days in June. I enjoyed this so much. Tia Williams, what I have found is that she has such an ability to create a sense of just atmosphere in a book. I am standing in the room where this book happens every time I read one of her books. I've read 2, so I guess that's not a huge sample, but both times I have read her books, I feel like I am standing in the room watching the story happen. She creates such a sense of atmosphere and ability to create such a sense of place, and the visualization for me with the characters. I just really get pulled into the story and feel so present in what is happening, and it feels so real and raw so often. I like the themes of her stories of exploring generational trauma, as well as all of these stories of women and how they are evolving and changing over the course of time, as well as examining past issues, past traumas, and kind of growing past them. Really beautiful stories. The audiobook narrator also did a really great job of kind of creating the different voices, which is their job, but just such different personalities within the way the narrator read the book. I had a great time. I loved this book. I will continue to auto buy Tia Williams going forward. While I am raving about this book, I also want to give you a heads up to check your trigger warnings. I believe in always checking your trigger warnings, but for this book specifically, there are some big ones around substance abuse and self-harm, so just take care of yourself. I also read Magic for Nothing and Tricks for Free by Shauna McGuire, which are books 6 and 7 in the Incryptid series. In this, we are following Antimony Price, who is another one of the Price siblings that we have been following so far. And I can't tell you what Annie is doing in this book because it is a spoiler for the end of book 5. But overall in this series, we are following the Price family, who are cryptozoologists. They are looking to conserve and protect Incryptids depending on what the cryptids needs are, because we have things from big feet all the way down to little tiny birds that have feathers and scales. So depending on if they are sentient or not, or if they are more animal-like, the Price family tries to take care of these rare and endangered species as much as they can for one family. We have seen them all over the globe at this point, and it is a really fun series. It's also a really poignant series, and I just love it. I really enjoy the setup of these stories. They're easy to read. They make me usually emotional, and I just love a Shauna McGuire main character. She just puts them together in a way that really works for me. So I have really enjoyed getting to know Annie. I'm reading another book in the series right now, and I'm going to continue. This is a long series. I think there's 19 books in the series, and I am hoping that it never ends because the way Shauna McGuire builds a world is so interesting. Like I said, we've traveled all over the world to see these different encrypted species, and there's a lot of community building as well as just really interesting fantasy work done here. So I'm gonna keep raving about this series because it's just been so incredibly fun. Then I read What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. This is the second book in the Sworn Soldier series, and the first book is What Moves the Dead. I really loved What Moves the Dead. In this book, we are still following Alex as they go home to their home country. When they arrive in Galatia, they find that their home has been their caretaker is dead, and they don't know why, and they're trying to figure out why, but some strange things start happening, and after their experience in What Moves the Dead, they're not quite sure they know if they're in over their head or not, and the story kind of goes from there. This was a great follow-up to What Moves the Dead. I liked the first book a little bit more, but overall I will be continuing the series here. Again, I really love an atmospheric book, and Kingfisher creates such a creepy, crawly atmosphere in this story, and I just had a fantastic time with this novella. And even though I was reading it in the warmth of summer, I felt like I was in the Galatian winter. It was so well crafted and gave me such a sense of atmosphere, and I connect with all the characters here. It combines a lot of things that I like, and it was a fun read. Then I'm going to talk about two books that I felt about the same. The first is The Man and His Cat by Umi Sakurai, and the other is Creepy Cat by Cotton Valent, and these are both volume 1 in their series. And I gave both of these about a 3-star. I thought they were fun reads. They're both about people who get a cat and kind of have to figure out how to take care of that cat. The first is a man who is older, and he has adopted a cat as companionship, and he's kind of just figuring out the ins and outs of cat ownership and how to entertain his cat and such, and it's very cute and sweet. Creepy Cat is a cat who comes with a house. A young lady inherits a house, and there's a creepy cat inside, and he gets up to all kinds of creepy little things. And both of these were fun. Both of them were interesting. They were both graphic novels that didn't take me long to read. I'm not sure I'm going to continue the series simply because my library doesn't have the follow-up volumes. So for now, I'm kind of just up in the air about it, but if I ever come across them or find them, I might pick them up. But overall, these were fun, but didn't grab me and compel me to go check out the rest of the series. Then I picked up Goldie Vance Volume 3 by Hope Larson. This is the story of Goldie Vance, who is a aspiring detective at her father's hotel. Her father is like the manager of the hotel, and she lives there. And there have been a lot of mysterious things that happen at Goldie's hotel, and she investigates each one and tries to figure them out. This one was as fun as the others, and I will probably continue to just randomly pick up these volumes because my library has more of them, but they're just fun. They're historical, they explore some fun themes, they're queer, just lots of things that appeal to me, and they're really sweet overall. Like, they're a fun adventure story, and I think they're young adult, but they're just very fun. I also read The Deep Dark by Molly Knox Osterhag, which is one of my favorite reads of the month. I picked this up on a whim at my library because I have enjoyed other books by Osterhag, and in this we're following Magdalena, who is about to graduate high school, and she has been living with her grandmother whose health is failing, and she lives in this family home with her grandmother, and there's something in the basement that Magdalena has to get out and feed every night with her blood. And this is the story of kind of uncovering family secrets. When a childhood friend comes back, Mag has to kind of reckon with all of this, as well as kind of seeing the glimpse of a future that she could have and what that feels like, but still feeling trapped. And this was a beautiful story. It was really well put together, as far as there's so much play of black and white versus color here that really does some interesting things in the graphic novel. It's also beautifully illustrated, and I just really enjoyed this. This is also queer and magical and explores themes of trauma and family stories and secrets, and I had a really good time reading this, and it was beautiful. It's a chunky graphic novel, but it is worth the read. Then I read Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz, and this is an arc that I got through NetGalley, and I was really intrigued by this because it is a sci-fi novella about the future where California has fought a war to separate from the United States, and some robots in a noodle restaurant wake up, and their restaurant, I don't think, was a noodle restaurant when they fell asleep, but they figure out that the people running their restaurant haven't been paying the bills, and they could all be split up, and some of them are very stressed about this. So they decide to run a noodle restaurant in their space under the radar so that no one finds out that they are paying their own rent, and they set this up. But then someone starts review bombing them, and they have to figure out how to recover from this. So I believe there's like 5 robots in this. They're all fantastic. I fell in love with all these little robots and their little stories. So on the surface, we have this story of these robots who are trying to run a noodle restaurant. But when you look a little deeper as you read the book, you realize the author has weaved in so much commentary on community, found family, racism, the effects of war on people, as well as climate change, and the prejudices that people hold against others. And there's so much woven in here, as well as several different perspectives from the robot characters, but I never felt overwhelmed. The author does a really good job of weaving this all together and making it feel like a cohesive story. Even though it's very short, I got sucked into this. Once again, the atmosphere was great, and I just really enjoyed this, and it was just fantastically done. I really, really enjoyed it, and I read it at a time when I really needed it, and it was just a beautiful little story. The author maintains a cozy and comforting feeling while also confronting and commentating on all those topics that I just talked about, and I really, really loved it, and I can't wait to read more from this author. I had to move this slightly because my phone did something weird, so if I have moved, I'm sorry. Next, I read Delicious in Dungeon Volume 1 by Ryoko Kui, and this was the story of this adventuring party who they get kicked out of an underground dungeon after they're fighting. They basically lose some members, and they decide that instead of recruiting new members and buying a whole bunch of new supplies, they're just gonna go into the dungeon with what they have and try to capture and kill and cook the things that they find there. And that's how they start off this story. And they're also trying to get back in order to save one of their party members who got eaten by a dragon. So that's where we start out the story, and this was okay for me. For me personally, it was a little too repetitive because we're basically finding a thing, defeating it, and cooking it, and like creating a recipe. And it was interesting and cool to see, but I also was just like, this is happening the same way every time, and we were having some of the same arguments in the party every time. So for me, this was okay. My library has more copies that I might check out more later. I also don't know if this was just something that I wasn't quite in the mood for, but it's not something I'm saying I'm never going back to, but I'm also not super invested in it either. So kind of a middle of the road start to the series for me. Next up, we have Magic Shifts by Alana Andrews, and this is my secondhand copy that has a library cover on it, so it's a little shiny. And in this series, we follow Kate, who starts out as a mercenary living on her own, who's trying to protect her own personal secrets and make sure she is not found by some very powerful people. So she lives on her own, but slowly over the course of this series, she develops a found family. She gets people in her inner circle and kind of just breaks a bunch of rules that she has for herself about not forming connections, and she gets deeper into the Atlanta politics. She is living in this futuristic Atlanta where magic has come back into the world and basically ebbs and flows in waves, and when the magic works, the technology doesn't, and vice versa. This is book 8, and what I realized upon reread is that, I think I talked about this a little bit last month as well with book 7, that books 7 and 8 really ramp up the larger picture story of the series, and these have some of the most emotional scenes in the series. They are truly these books that kind of just dig us deeper into the story and the relationships and the characters, and it's so well done. I really love how diverse the Andrews make their stories as far as the type of mythologies that we explore and the characters that we have in here. I love it. It's so interesting. I feel consistently throughout this series that the larger world exists. Like, Atlanta is very complex and we see the inner workings of Atlanta, but consistently I feel like the larger world is brought into this story, and I feel like we feel the larger magical world happening as well. And I just love that about this series because it just makes the world feel more cohesive and actually like it could be. So I love that about this series. I love the characters most of all. Like, all of the family feelings in here are fantastic, and I love it. I love this series, and I'm going to continue to love it and reread it. Then I read volumes 12 and 13 of Spy Family by Tetsuya Endo, and this is the story of Lloyd Forger, who is a undercover spy. He's the best spy that this government has, and he needs to get close to a political enemy, so he builds a family who can help him do that. He doesn't know it, but he's adopted a psychic daughter who can read his thoughts. His wife that he thinks is a normal woman is actually an assassin, and their dog is even special in a lot of ways. And slowly over the course of this series, we have just kind of tried to accomplish these aims, but also it's a spy series, but it's also comedic. It's so funny and I really enjoy these volumes. I've had a great time getting to this point. Last year, I think I read just a few too many in quick succession, so I ended up taking a little bit of a break and jumping back into it now. And this actually ended up being a good spot for me because personally, I like the adult storylines a bit more than Anya at school, even though I think she's hilarious too, but her storylines kind of feel repetitive to me at some points. So I have really enjoyed kind of this turn that we took in the story, and it feels like we're building a bit of a larger plot line right here. So I really enjoyed these 2 volumes, and I can't wait to check out more. I'm not sure, I know there are more volumes at this point, but I don't know if they've been translated, so I'm kind of have to dig in and find out. I also read The Ghostkeeper by Johanna Taylor. This is the story of Dorian, who is a young man who is a bit of a therapist for ghosts. He can see ghosts, and he goes around trying to help ghosts move on, and living people are asking him to like help clear out their haunted houses and such. And Dorian really tries to help these ghosts move on rather than other people who try to like exorcise the ghost and destroy the ghosts. So through a series of events, Dorian finds out that one of the doors to death, to moving on, has closed, and all of the ghosts in town are relying on him to help maintain them and keep them from turning into poltergeists until this door can be reopened. And this story is about grief and loss and learning to set boundaries and how to say no and all of these things. And Dorian is a wonderful little character. He's really trying to therapize these ghosts at the beginning, and it's very sweet. It's set historically, so it feels a little bit like A Legend of Sleepy Hollow, kind of, with all of these ghosts and the old-timiness of it all and everything. But there's a lot of interesting topics in here, and the art is absolutely gorgeous. So I really loved this, had a great time reading it, and I will be checking out the author to see if they have anything else going on. Another graphic novel I read this month was Suitor Armor Volume 1 by Purpa, and this was a webtoon comic that was novelized, and this is the story of a young woman who is she's actually fae, and in this world they are not a part of the culture, and she has to hide her identity when she is adopted by a human family. And it's years and years later where she is the lady-in-waiting to the queen-to-be, and she is kind of very curious about her fae heritage because she's never met another fae that she can remember. And there is a suit of armor that has been animated by a magician, and the two of them kind of form this connection because no one believes he's like sentient, but she treats him like he is, and he kind of becomes fond of her, and it feels like there's going to be a little bit of a romance here. It was a fun, sweet, kind of cozy story while also having some undertones of darker things that I think we'll probably explore in later books, but not too dark at all. So fun time. We'll be continuing the series. Then to round out the month, I finished the Dallergut Dream Department Store, and this is the story of Penny, who is a dream salesperson. Every night she sells dreams to humans and animals who come into the department store looking for the perfect dream, and there are flying dreams and ice cream dreams and date dreams and anything and everything you can think of. There's different types of dreams in this store that she helps sell customers so that they can dream their fantasies. And it was such a delightful, cozy read. I truly didn't expect it to be what it was. Like, I kind of went into this a little bit blind. I had read the description a while ago, but I saw that Danny and Leandra were doing it for their Not Reading for Content podcast, and I thought, this is the time to try this out. And I happened to read it right at the end of June, and it was kind of just what I needed at the end of June, because it was cozy and fun and delightful, and we were finishing out the amazing readathon, and I just kind of needed something like soft and comforting, and I got it. This was the perfect book for that feeling. Beautiful things going on in this book, but it really got me deep down in my feelings, and I had such a good time reading it. Like, it absolutely blew me out of the water. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I can't wait to listen to them talk about it, but I just truly enjoyed the cozy, beautiful nature of this book, and I know there's a sequel coming out, and I can't wait to see what that is. I will say that there's not a ton of plot here, so if you are a reader who needs a plot, there isn't much here. We're mostly exploring Penny's job, kind of just day to day as she gets to know her job and get to know what is going on in the dream world as far as dream creators and dream sales and how people pay for dreams and things like that. But there's not a ton of plot. It's very much just exploring this world, and it's beautiful, but if that isn't your cup of tea, this might not be for you. But it is still, I still recommend giving it a try because it is such a delightful little story. Then I have 2 DNFs from the course of the month. The first is The Year of the Reaper by Makai Lussier, and this is one that I think is more of a DFN, like did not finish for now, or whatever that acronym would be, because I was reading this and I really think the audiobook and I were not jiving. I think I would like to go back and try this book before the end of the year. I have a few books like this at this point, just to see if it was me or the book or the pressure of the readathon that got to me, but this one wasn't working for me at the time, but I don't know if that's a forever problem. And then the other 2 were The Vixen's Deceit by Nikki Sloan, as well as the Hellmouth Guardian's Lover by Adriana Herrera. These were in the same novella collection, obviously, and this is the Peculiar Taste volumes. So the first 2 in this series were okay. I liked them. These 2 I have DNF'd, and then I have 1 more volume. So I think I'd like to pick that up before the end of the year to see if I want to hang on to these or if this entire group just isn't going to be for me. And both of these were ones that I just they were not to my taste. There are content warnings in the front of these. I did read those, and I decided to give the books a try anyway. So this is nothing against the books. These just were not stories for me and my personal taste. So anyway, at the end of the day, those were my DNFs for the month. All things that I don't think were necessarily the book's fault. But that is everything that I read in the course of June. Like I said, it was a lot of books. I read quite a number of things and I had a really good time doing it. But if you have any thoughts or feelings or want to share anything about the books that I read this month, please let me know down below. I'd love to chat with you down there. If you aren't feeling chatty, go ahead and leave me just a rainbow emoji. We are no longer in Pride Month, but we read queer here all year round. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!